George Street. I actually used to play hockey with a guy, and his name, and he was a goalie. His name was George Street. Did you know that? Swear to God, he's from Bay Roberts.
Oh.
No, he's from Bay Roberts. Yeah, I haven't seen him since like high school, but that was his legitimate name, George Street. Coolest guy in the world, and he was a goalie. How cool is that?
Makes me interested to see what his middle name was.
That's actually the perfect intro for the episode we're about to do. The guy we got coming on, undoubtedly familiar with George Street. He's undoubtedly familiar with Southern Ontario. That's home to two of our biggest fan bases at DSC. We got the voice of the Marlies, Mr. Todd Crocker, coming on the show. Blessed to have him. None of that happens, of course, guys, without the sponsorship of PHG Sports, also out of Southern Ontario. So PHG Sports, that's where the pros sign, www.phgsports.com. But anyway, that's not what you're here to listen to. You want to hear the stories from Croc himself. So let's titter tatter. Let's get at her. All right, ladies and gents, welcome to Season 2, Episode 7 of the Deke Snipes LA podcast. As mentioned in the intro, of course, we've got a great guest today. Native son of Hamilton, Ontario. Self-described, started off in a soul-sucking job in radio, but worked his way into working for his the hometown Tiger Cats, actually. And I'm actually interested to hear a little bit more about that a little bit later. But he was the director of operations for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. But more importantly, what we've got him here to talk about, he's worked in one way, shape, or form covering AHL hockey for over 23 years. He's the voice of your Toronto Marlies, Mr. Todd Crocker. Welcome to the show, Todd.
Pleasure to be here. I think the greatest part about something like this, and really one of the great parts about the whole pandemic, has been the ability to do things like this that have become just kind of like, it's okay. Before, you used to kind of say, well, we're going to talk to some guy halfway across the world, but we can't use the video because it looks like this. But now it's just like, hey, this is the way it should look, so it feels great. We're connecting better in the hockey world because of it.
Yeah, well, this is what TSN looks like now. When you turn on TSN, this is what you get. Right?
Yeah.
You get a couple of guys in studio, and everyone else is sitting at home drinking bevies and not wearing pants generally.
Fancy shirts and shorts. Yeah.
I think we look better
really though.
We look better than the Overdrive crowd, though. I think.
Yeah,
I do always have to check though when you say things like that. It's like, no, I kept them on. I kept them on for this. I must have stepped it up a notch here. So that's good.
We're honored. We are honored.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we'll lean in by letting you tell a little bit, giving us a little bit more detail into your career and how you ended up with the Marlies.
Yeah, so the Marlies story is interesting because John Abbott, who was the voice of the Marlies for a couple of years and voice of the run, that a couple of different ways you'd hear his voice. He was with the team when they went to their first Calder Cup against Norfolk. It didn't go so well, as some folks know. They lost in 4 straight to a very powerful Norfolk team that went on to become a very powerful Tampa Bay team. And then John was also the voice at the same time that Drew McIntyre made that incredible round the back save that just went, well, I don't even know if it could have gone viral at the time, but it since has, say. And then John went to call games. Well, Joe Bowen, voice of the Leafs, we all know, he would do the TV games, and then John would go and call the radio. And so they needed somebody at that time to come and do the Marlies games. And so they called me, the idea being that, you take a young guy at a junior and you give him the job for a year. Well, then he's lost his job in junior. And that would just be terrible because John was coming back a year later. So I was a filmmaker at the time, did a couple of documentaries, and they said, maybe you can make a documentary at the same time. And yeah, hook, line, and sinker right there. I was just like, I'm totally doing that. I'm going to make a documentary. I'm going to call play-by-play. I've been calling play-by-play since the Bulldogs, 1998, I think it was. First, I was their voice full time, and then for many, many, many years after that, right up until the Marlies called, I was the TV guy, the local guy who would call it for television, and so got a great opportunity to call their Calder Cup win and to be a part of a Calder Cup run that ended badly, and so it was a lot of great experience, a lot of depth in the American Hockey League, and so they said, well, yeah, but you run your own business, you're a filmmaker, you do all this kind of stuff. Can you take the time to kind of do this for a season? And I said, yeah, I guess. I wasn't really like jumping in with both feet, but when they mentioned the documentary side, I'm like, you got me. I'm doing that. Well, I think I was there a week before I went, I can't do both these things. There's no way. Like, I'm carrying a camera. I've got this on the go. I'm trying to work on sound. I'm trying to get guys to do interviews for Leafs TV at the time. And then I realized quite quickly I couldn't do it, which was fine because it turned out to be one of the best years of hockey in my life. And I enjoyed it so much. And when I finished out the year, I said to Steve Spott, who was the coach at the time, if you need me to do anything else, I'll be here for you, because I enjoyed that year so much. Restored my faith in hockey. That's happened a couple of times in my career. I've worked for Leafs TV before, and I did a show called Saturday's Heroes with my friend Chris Clark, and it was kids who play house league in Toronto and the surrounding area. They got a chance to play in the afternoon of a Leafs game, so they'd have morning skate, and then they go to, at the time, Air Canada Center, and just house league guys, not rep, not anybody that was, obviously might have an opportunity to do it anyway. Just these house league kids, and they get in. We do this Saturday's Heroes, and that at a time when my relationship with hockey was kind of, this is just a grind and whatever. Suddenly, it was just like, wow, this is like getting a bowl of popcorn that's got all sorts of butter on it. Just felt great.
Yeah,
that's the dream.
Yeah, and then John Abbott, anyway, at the end of that year, John Abbott, I came to the golf tournament next year, Leafs and Legends golf tournament, like, sidebar here. Imagine rolling up to a huge golf tournament like Leafs and Legends, and your choices, to golf with are like Wendell Clark, Todd Crocker. I'm the kid on the playground who's just like, I hope somebody picks me. I'm just really hoping.
Happy to be here.
Whoever paid the lead for that golf tournament got me. Now, they got a lot of hockey stories out of it, but nonetheless, I felt like I definitely had to give them something. And John got the call to go to Vancouver and be their voice full time. And the guy who ran Leafs TV at the time, Aaron LaFontaine, said to me, hey, you want to keep doing the Marlies gang? And I took 3 seconds to answer, and I've been here ever since. So now they can't get rid of me.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I've dug myself in, like all sorts of places where I've just plugged in all over the place. So,
I know things.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Todd, go back a few years. Was that a lifelong dream of yours to be a play-by-play announcer?
It wasn't. It was when I started out, just out of college, out of a radio broadcasting program, conveniently located in my hometown. I could walk to school. Like, really, it became like high school with ashtrays. It was just like, seriously, now I'm going to college, and the only difference is we can drink legally here. And it was just like, I don't even know. And it wasn't the greatest, I think some people talk about college, and it wasn't the greatest experience of my life. But when I left, I wanted to be Johnny Fever. I wanted to be a DJ. I wanted to be, but radio had changed so significantly at the time. The guy who was being that guy was there. They weren't to be found. It was like, hey, you're going to play our music and our intervals. You're going to do this. We're going to dream up some sort of stupid contest that you're going to be a part of.
Yeah.
And you're going to, and then I was like, I just don't see how that's very fun. And, but anyway, I ended up in sports. Weird, because there were about 8-9 guys in my class that were way more sports oriented than I was. And, but I just got this job working for a syndicated, radio audio house. And And next thing you know, I was doing sports, and I ended up with the Tiger Cats from that job. And then a buddy of mine who worked at the Tiger Cats, Don Edwards, not the goaltender, went to run the Ontario Raiders, and he asked me to do the play-by-play, and I stepped in, and I probably did okay, but I did enough that the Hamilton Bulldogs, when the Raiders left and became the Toronto Rock, the Bulldogs said, we want you to call play-by-play for us. And so that was kind of neat, because here we are years later, the GM of that team is now the president of the league, Scott Howson. So
Yeah.
Cool.
you stick around long enough, everybody rises up that needs to rise up.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's cool.
That's awesome. So obviously we're a Newfoundland-based podcast. And oddly enough, we've been growing a following ever since we started, and that's only been about a year ago. But our biggest listening base is Southern Ontario and Newfoundland. I guess because we talk a lot of Leafs hockey, we talk a lot of Marlies hockey, we talk a lot of Growlers hockey. We're immersed. We've got a big history here in the AHL. I mean, we had the baby Leafs here for a better part of 20 years. After that, of course, we dabbled with some other teams and whatnot, but we've been in the AHL for quite some time. And now to do the ECHL. So I'm guessing you've made some trips to the island, yeah?
Oh yeah.
So what stands out?
So what stands out? What can be included in that conversation? I will tell you, no, maybe not that. Let me just see where this lands. I will say this. I probably ended off more than a couple of nights at the French fry truck just off Ziggy
Peelgoods.
I think Ziggy Peelgoods, I think it was called. Maybe it was late night, could have been early morning, hard to know. At that point, nobody was checking. Yeah, thank you. That's important.
We've all been there.
It's nice to be validated. So I just so many different things from different points of my life too. So I was with the Bulldogs, and the Leafs at the time had a big rivalry because it was Edmonton in Cape Breton, and they had moved to Hamilton. And so it was just one of those things where they just had such an intense rivalry. The old Memorial, which was great. I do remember, this is one of my favorite, and I think this is okay to say now, but so Brian Rogers used to leave like 4 beers. Well, I assume it was Brian. Used to leave 4 beers on ice for the visiting broadcaster. So that was great. I always thought it was great, because after the game, you used to have to, kind of do all sorts of little things in that time, call back to the station, do a hit, do all sorts of things. And Brian used to leave these 4 beers for me, I assume for everybody. I don't think it was just me. Actually, probably wasn't. Probably was just for me. But one night, it was 10-1 at the end of the game. The Leafs had just crushed the Bulldogs. It was a terrible, terrible loss. If they could have gone through 4 goaltenders, they would have. But it was, I think it was 6-1 when usually I wait till the end of the game, but it was 6-1, and I'm like,
yeah,
there we go. Come on now. And just as I did that, the 7th one went in, and I kind of pride myself on the fact that, look, I'll call a pretty even game. It's always from the Marlies' point of view, but I always call a pretty even game, because you never know when the guy on the other side, this is the only recording of maybe his first goal or the best goal he's ever scored or whatever. And to me, it's not fair to turn around and go, oh, he scored.
That's right. Good perspective.
Like one day, that guy's kids want to listen to that, and they'll want to be jacked up about it too. And I just don't think you can short somebody a goal, because they don't happen that often for a lot of people. So, but that night, whoever scored those final 3 goals, they got short. For sure.
Getting flashes of
That's awesome.
the movie Major League where the guys get the Jack Daniels on the go.
That's
Things
right.
just go
It
miserably.
did.
Right?
It did feel that way. I don't. I think the statute of limitations on the CRTC probably is run out on that, and I'll deny it anyway. So it.
Yeah.
But that was quite a night, and I'll never forget that after 10-1, and then I finally did all the hits. I looked back in the bucket and went, "Wow, that really was a tough game to call."
I'm gonna ask Brian that.
There's 4 dead ones there, and I don't know. I don't remember when this happened. So
what's really funny is we've been doing this podcast now. We've got, I don't know, 40, 50 episodes out, something like that. And as big a personality as Brian Rogers is locally, I don't know if we've ever mentioned him in the podcast.
No.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and that's amazing.
Honest to goodness, one of my favorite guys of all time. He had such a, he belonged where he belonged, and
100%.
I know that of course he would have loved to have called the Leafs or the Canadians or called any NHL situation. As you know, a lot of people feel that same tug in our league, and at some point it kind of starts to slide by you, and that's okay. But Brian, to me, was the voice of St. John's Maple Leafs.
Oh, yes.
Whatever happened after that,
St. John's hockey in general.
but he just was the voice that was just like flesh and the leather lobster. It was just like, oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
He was my first experience growing up and listening to a lot of announcers over the years. He was my first experience of an announcer being a pure another homer for the home team. And I've got to learn that Joe Bowen is also in the same category. Is that that must be a difficult task, separating your job from your passion or from the team, you know what I mean?
The thing about the thing about that is there's obviously those folks that are kind of, I'm not sure Joe quite falls. I mean, he's obviously a Leafs fan, and I guess all of us are. But I think I think Joe, of course, steps hard on Leafs goals, like, hey, let's go, like holy Mackinac, all that kind of stuff, and that's and I think it's legendary.
It is. Yeah.
I just think that there's a little bit of a difference between being a homer and calling it from the Leafs point of view. And I like to think I kind of fall into that category where I call it from the Marlies point of view. So to me, that often means, even when the Marlies are on defense, I'm mentioning defensive plays. You can't ignore what's really happening in the hockey game. And I don't think I think Joe calls opposing goals the same way. In fact, I'm just trying to think if I didn't hear that from him first somewhere to do that. I might be wrong, but I just think that actually it was Paul Hendrick who told me that that some kid is just going to hear this and you better give them their due. So yeah,
great point.
I love that.
I wanted to ask you about next. You talked about being a filmmaker and being into that business and being passionate about it. You must have watched All or Nothing, Amazon documentary.
I did. Yeah.
Now, as a guy who's both into the filmmaking as well as connected to the team and knowing the struggles and what the players go to, I can't imagine a better person to comment on how you think the guys sitting in that room were affected by the documentary happening around them.
Well, there's a funny thing that happens when you allow somebody into that circle of trust. I don't want to get Frank the Tank here on you, like we're in the trust tree. But I just think that there's, I think that once it starts to happen and you start to not see them. And I really do believe that that's what happens, because by the way, Aaron McCarthy is a tremendous filmmaker as well, does Leafs Blueprint, and I think she does a really good job on that show, and she's around them all the time. And so I think that once you kind of become the paneling, which you have to be in a documentary situation. Once you drop into the paneling and you just kind of become invisible, well, I think at that point, they're nothing anymore. They're just people that are around. They're just part of what's happening. They might as well be the equipment manager. They might as well be a trainer. They could be anybody. And that person just happens to have a camera with them. So I think as it goes along, I think in the beginning, sometimes it can be unnerving. I think sometimes I'm just started watching Drive to Survive because Christian Rubens is a big F1 fan and he got me onto this F1. Well, I've never watched F1 in my life. And so I started watching this Drive to Survive. And it's funny because all the young drivers just take it as this is what's happening. And one of the older drivers just keeps looking around like, do we have to have that camera here? And I'm like, well, so I think the young guys get it. I think they really do.
Yeah, that's true.
Probably more exposed to it as well.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, way more exposed to the media.
Yeah, you just assume the camera's on you, I guess.
Yeah,
you got characters like Joe Thornton. You got characters like Joe Thornton last year. I'm sure he plays up for the camera.
Oh yeah, right. He feeds off that.
Yeah, and why wouldn't you? I mean, Joe has an outsized personality, and it can rule a situation, and I think that sometimes that's great. I think sometimes you'd like to see it take a back seat, but you can't. It's just you got to take everything that comes with it. We all know people in our lives that are like that. They walk into a room, they light up the room, and for an hour they hold you captive, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I kind of am tired. Like somebody else needs to talk to this guy. Well, I go get a drink.
Yeah.
I've always said that about Joe Thornton, though. I feel like he's very exhausting.
Well, yeah, and I don't know because I don't know Joe.
No, but not in a bad way. Not in a bad way, though. But he just seems like he has a ton of energy, and you can certainly see that in the documentary. You can really see that, right? Yeah,
and I think it's important to remember that editing plays a key role in those kinds of things too. The story doesn't happen on when you're a filmmaker. The story doesn't happen on the camera. It happens in the editing room. I did a documentary about street performers, buskers, and the amount of footage we shot would tell you nothing, but we cut it in a way that it tells the narrative that we hope it told, which was these people are highly talented and choose to do this, not these people are highly talented and want your money, which they also want your money, but the key is that they're talented. And so when it got edited the way it did chronologically in their case, which wouldn't have been my first choice, but I get it. I get how they do that. So, and why you do it, because you can edit it as you go along, as opposed to kind of getting there and saying, well, what kind of storyline developed? What happened here? Who's this and who's kind of like this person? So I get it, but I don't think it'd be anybody's first choice to just chronologically document what happens, without the context of relationships. Yeah, because all sports are personal, right? I mean, the second I meet somebody and I like somebody, I want to be at the game to see them. That's why it's important, to that we have contact with people. That's the great part about the ECHL, the AHL. You go to an AHL All-Star game, our All-Star game, they take the glass down at the skills competition, and the fans are right there interacting with them. And it's just such an honest moment. It feels great. And I think those are the moments that make the difference in any game, and our game in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. I can attest to that. I had my wife bought them for me for Christmas one year. Last time we had the AHL All-Star game here in St. John's, back in our Ice Caps days, my wife bought me rinkside seats to the skills competition. And when I showed up, I'm like, where's the glass? And it was just amazing. Like in the fastest skater, you could feel the breeze when these guys passed by. I mean, this was no joke, right? And it was just, I felt like I was actually part of the competition as opposed to a spectator, you know, just an amazing experience.
Changes your perspective.
Yeah, I was going to say that goes for a lot of things too, though. Like on a different level, I can't speak for AHL, but with ECHL, like we have the owner of the Growlers on our podcast. He responds to comments on Facebook in our Facebook group. Like I don't believe you would see, not that Call Dubas wouldn't do that, but it's like they're not permitted to do those things either, right? No. We just get more access at this lower level, and it's kind of cool. So, and I'm sure AHL is probably intimate. Yeah, it is way more. And I'm sure like AHL is probably a little bit more relaxed, obviously, than the NHL, probably not as relaxed as the ECHL, but it's just, it's cool and it's intimate. I like that.
That's what I like for
especially
my kids
for us as Newfoundlanders. Yeah.
I even found with the Baby Leafs here, it was really hard to get access to things. I was a kid. I couldn't get in anywhere. But I found with the Growlers, I mean, you can get kids into a lot of things. It's a lot of stuff in the Growlers Academy, hockey school and stuff like that. I'm going to get my kids into. And yeah, I'm glad I have that level of hockey here, and I'll save the big ones for when I fly away. But I mean, I'd like to fly away a little bit more, but you know, maybe soon.
I know.
Get off the island for a little while.
That old COVID. We'll blame it on that, hey?
Yeah, I was just saying the other day that's become a catch for everybody. We were in Chicago last week, and I was at a French fry truck. There's a theme here, and I was at a French fry truck, and it was taking a little long. And the guy says to me, he says, it's taking a little longer, you know, COVID. And I'm like, oh yes, the supply chain from the potatoes to the fryer to me, all COVID related.
Right.
COVID.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So Todd, it's game day.
Yes, go ahead, Paddy.
What does preparation look like for you in your role?
Well, you know, that's interesting because that I get that question a lot because I think people might think that I spend most of game day, you know, immersed in my secret lair, handing out assignments to henchmen and stuff like that. But I'm just I find that I need to have a decompression kind of day. So a lot of the information that I use, I get before then. I need to get into a game with a clear mind and not be cluttered because the way I call play, I rely on a color guy at home. And that was Bob McGill for a long time. And Bob never had a problem talking. So it was always real good between us. Because I believe the role of play-by-play is to call play. It's to notice things and use words that describe perfectly what is happening on the ice. And then it is up to the color guy then to tell you what happened away from the puck and why things happened. He's the why, I'm the what. And I find sometimes now that people try to cross that bridge a lot. And I think it's something that happens in the early part of play-by-play people, their careers, is they try to insert their own either opinion or thoughts on what happened on a play. But you don't watch the game like that as a play, or you shouldn't, I don't think. Well, I don't know, maybe you can. I can't. But because I watch the game, you know, like I'm doing this, right, the whole time. I'm only watching a certain segment of what's going on. And, you know, the colored person is watching it from out here, you know, pulled back, seeing everything. And I just don't, to me, I don't get how you can then comment on what happened. I have to do it on the road, but I stay away from it. I stay away from kind of analyzing play and just lean a little bit more on stats or lean a little bit more on what I saw happen. And oftentimes talk about cookies as well. So I don't know. It's just
and French fries.
People who listen on the
French
road they get a whole different, you know, broadcast than what happens at home. They get a whole step into another world of what happened in my day, and it's very stream of consciousness. And I'm sure it drives some people absolutely crazy just to say, oh man, here he goes again. You know, talking about you know, some place he got noodles for dinner. It's like, come on, right now. And I'm like,
well, Todd,
all about the snacks.
I like that genuine touch, though. At least it's genuine, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to kiss a bit of ass here now, and this is the honest to God truth. One of my favorite segments that was ever done was when you used to do the walk to the rink.
Yeah.
I legitimately enjoyed tuning in and getting your take on the city that you were in and the temperature and the climate and the weather and what was to be expected between the two teams. I literally loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Genius, actually.
Well, you know, I see other people doing it now. I saw somebody doing it far more sophisticated than I do it at the Olympics. They had a guy who was going around wherever the Olympics were last time, and he was kind of, you know, living the life of whatever. I'll tell you how I came to it. I was in Utica one afternoon. Do you care how I came to it, or?
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
No, go for it.
This is not the greatest. It's not the greatest segment in you know online history. But I was sitting in Utica in my hotel room, just like bored, and I thought, I'm up. I want to go to the rink. I'll walk. And I walked from the hotel to the rink, and I decided with this new Facebook Live thing, I was going to try it. It was no big deal. Now, you know, nowadays you have to go through 44 meetings before you could ever get something like that approved. But I just started going and started talking about what I got from the bartender the night previous. This guy was so knowledgeable about Utica, and I tend to gravitate to those conversations anyway. So in those locations. And so I just, you know, gathered up all this information and I spewed it out on my walk to the rink. And it was a surprise for everybody, but I think the first one was a smashing success. And so they said, well, if you ever want to do that again, go ahead. And so I did. There are people in Utica who will recognize me, and I can't get that into my head. You know, like it's just, so we were there last, and I just started doing them again, by the way, Ryan. I just recently started doing them again. I stopped doing them because I thought, why, people aren't really interested in this stuff. This is crazy. It just seems like me in a stream of conscious randomness. I don't even know why. And yet the first one I did, there's so much feedback from all these people who just I think, well, I don't know, you'd be able to tell me better, but they just love seeing where the team is and knowing a little bit about what the rink looks like, what the town looks like, what the team is experiencing. You know, and so I'm going to keep doing them this year, or get back to doing them this year. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it. I enjoy it. I've always enjoyed it.
Thanks.
It's that personal touch. It's the same reason people watch podcasts. Trust me.
Exactly.
I can't understand why we have a subscriber in South Australia. I'll never fully understand. Whoever you are, thanks for listening or watching.
We always make it a point to thank that one.
Yeah, but like I don't really get it. I don't understand. I don't get it. So, you know, we've got people who actually subscribe to our channel and watch these things or listen to these things regularly. And I'm a stats nerd in hockey as well as I am in podcasting. I watch the numbers and the graphs and who's listening at what points and then what their average watch time duration might be. And I just find it fascinating because I don't really find us that fascinating. These guys are just people who I've been friends with for a long time, and we shoot the shit about all levels of hockey and all topics in between. But
hobby's getting out of control, yeah.
But it's honest. It's honest.
Exactly.
That makes a big difference.
And you know what? We always try to make it a point to talk about the alternative views, because you can hop on Facebook and see any old crappy view you want a million times over. We'd like to get a little bit more into it. There's more to it than that. And that's why I keep doing it. It just keeps me interested in more sides.
That and to show off the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
That's
beautiful job.
That's not mine.
Yeah, that's
she
not
does a good job
work
every year, man. I can show it off. It takes the focus off of this. Right?
Oh, come on.
It's a beautiful tree, though, Chad. I gotta say.
Oh my God, she does a great job every year.
It is
never change it.
Anyway, enough about our podcast. We would have won the podcast of the year award too hadn't Todd got into that rant as to how he came up with walk to the rink. Thanks, Todd.
I know. Of all things, you're just right on the edge, right there. Now,
it was Dallas Eakins
on the podium, getting a silver medal.
Did Dallas Eakins do some of those too?
No, Dallas was. Oh, me may have, but yeah, and I don't even know. Like I say, I don't even know why it came into my head. I just started doing it, and then people liked it, so I kept doing it, and it's just fascinating. Because I have a load of useless information that it comes with me on a regular basis, and
you and me both.
Yeah. I oftentimes with that information, I'll wrap it up in a bit of a fable. And Justin Bourne, who was our video coach for a little while, and then he's now on Sportsnet and he's had wild success there, which is great. But I was always able to kind of tell him a story, that had enough fact in it, and then right to a thing where he'd be like, "Oh yeah, oh, hey, is that true?" Absolutely not. And he just be like, "Come on!"
Oh my God. Yeah, hour later.
A full hour.
It's like, at what part did you start lying?
Yeah. Well, that's what he often says. He says that I've come to a point here where I have a lot of facts and information, but I'm not quite confident to repeat them.
And that's fair. Sense. That's fair.
Yeah. It's entertaining.
Todd, do you have a favorite call during your Marlies career?
Oh,
well,
let's exclude the championship.
I was just gonna say there's got to be one obvious one. Hey.
Yeah, that is the one obvious one. It was though interestingly enough, that season for me, or that postseason, was filled with well, not filled, but there were a couple of calls that I felt like I nailed it. Like I failed. Like I just was. I captured that. And there's some I blew because I've done that many times. So, and you don't know it, or maybe you do, but like I know it. Like the other night, Josh Ho-Sang scored a goal, beautiful highlight reel, goal, incredible. And what I meant to say was Josh Ho-Sang or something. Now, see, I've now screwed it up, and even in retelling it, I couldn't get it right.
You had one job.
I wanted to say sensational, but instead I was just like, what happened there? I went off into this. He sings it into the net, and this happened, and it's sensational. I'm like, that was not what I was hoping to do. But the call that I really look back on oftentimes and think, I nailed that one, was when Freddie Gauthier scored in overtime against Syracuse. I think it was game 2 of the second round, and gave the Marlies the win in the second game. It was like, goal for the big man, fee 5 phenomenal. And
cool.
I remember.
Yeah, it didn't come to me until the moment I said it, and after I said it, I was even then I was kind of like, did that make sense? And I remember looking at Bob after I called it and he won and the whole deal, and I looked over and Bob's grinning ear to ear. He's just like, "Oh, you nailed it!" And I'm like,
great.
It is, but it's not fee 5 phenomenal. What is it? What what is the
fee 5 faux fum? Yeah, I mean, that was pretty good though.
Yeah,
especially at the spur of the moment to come up with that. That's talent.
Rolls perfectly.
And then Miro Altman had one in overtime against Lehigh Valley, and it was like Miro the hero, and it was just just moments like that you kind of think. I think back, the other one I can remember from very early on, the first year TJ Brennan had started for really in a positive manner. He had a hat trick in his first game and a hat trick, I think, in his third or fourth game. And on the second hat trick, on the third goal, I called him 3J Brennan. And I thought, how did that not stick? Like it just like, how did that not continue to be a thing? Maybe I never said it again. He didn't score another hat trick again, so maybe that didn't happen. But I felt like sometimes you feel like you say something, it's like, I got it. I was like, he's 3J Brennan.
It's gold, like, people. It's gold.
Yeah, gold, Jerry. Gold.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just like, I just at that one, I thought I'd done something there. And but the nice part about that particular thing is I talked to TJ, you know, I don't know, years later or whatever, he'd remembered it. So that was enough for me.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's an accomplishment.
Well, the better question is, why didn't TJ Brennan stick? I mean,
it was one of my favorite Marlies for sure.
He was one of my favorite Fog Devils back in the
weapon. Yeah.
Yes,
he was on playing Newfoundland, right? He was a great player for us on a terrible team in St. John's, and went on to have a. Well, and I was like, this guy is going to be the next coming of Thomas Caberlet, or I don't know, you know what I mean? I was like, this guy's going to be a Leaf forever, and it just never really materialized.
Well, and I think what happens is for TJ Brennan is, you know, he's brought in with the idea that he's going to come in when something goes wrong up top. So he thinks, you know, he's there to kind of be that 7th, 8th guy. But he's what did Greg Moore called somebody this the other day, Joey Dusack, an offenseman. And that's what TJ Brennan was. And I still don't think that anybody I've seen anybody with a one-timer like he had.
No, it was great.
It was just so well executed. But you know, you gotta, you know, he went to teams and were on teams that skated fast, very fast. And to keep up in that situation, you know, you had to find that gear or find a way around it. And I think they moved him, you know, at a point, got him back, recognizing that he was such an important piece of the puzzle. He's a guy that I wish they would have gotten back and got a Calder Cup ring out of it, because he's just that great a guy. And the short answer is, goes to speedy teams, and very hard when you're a guy who can get that done at the AHL level with the AHL speed, but just that next gear that you need up top, maybe it wasn't there. Maybe the room wasn't there to pull the one-timer. You know, there's lots of guys who are in the next pay grade that you know, made that decision, and they didn't see something that they needed to see, and those two things might have been it.
And there's only so many roster spots, you know. It's like you could be just like that extra one out. And you know, no knock on him, he had a great career, like in the AHL. He's defenseman of the year. So I mean, he's had a great career. Besides, I just would have liked to see him in the Leafs uniform. I had visions at one point that he was going to replace Jake Gardner, and it just didn't happen.
He couldn't stick on a Leafs team that had terrible defense. And if I'm not mistaken, he ended up in Chicago. Does that sound right?
Yeah,
in Philly and Philly too, wasn't it?
Yeah, Chicago first.
And then that's where he ended up. That's where he finished out in the AHL, and now he's over in I want to say with Red Bull in Austria, I think.
Yeah, somewhere over there.
I think so.
He always reminded me of John Slaney. John Slaney,
yes,
one of the best AHL defensemen of all time. Yeah. Never really got that break on a team. Whether it was with Washington, had a stint with Pittsburgh. I think he was in the Phoenix organization at the end.
Yeah,
never really got that break. I always compared TJ Brennan because he was so dynamic. And when he came in here, because I can recall, I don't think I missed a game at the Fog Devils in 3 years. He came in as a walk-on.
He did.
Yeah, he did not have that big name, but I can remember in that first year, or in the preseason, he really made a name for himself. And he was on a top pairing, very quick on a pretty bad Fog Devils team, but you knew there was some promise there.
And truly, for me, is just one of my most favorite Marlies of all time. I just have great respect for him as a person. I could talk to him for hours, and he would, reciprocate. And his family is just really incredible group. And
great to hear.
And when there's guys that things happen to that you're kind of like, oh well, that happens. And then there's guys that you want to see have success, and he didn't play for free, so in my books he got he got paid, and he had success, and that to me is oftentimes we measure success about what happens at the NHL level, but he's made a career out of hockey.
Well, exactly. If anybody wants to offer me a job in hockey in Austria, Switzerland, I mean, come on, I'm there.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that everyone thinks that NHL is nothing.
Yeah, one year the Rochester Americans went to the Spengler Cup, and then the next year the Marlies were supposed to go, but they couldn't quite work it out, and it didn't quite work out. But we were pretty keyed up to go to the Spengler Cup for Christmas, to be in Switzerland.
Christmas. That would have been.
I don't know how the hockey, I don't know how that would have gone, but I can tell you the broadcasting would have been interesting.
I would love to go over there.
A handful of beers again.
Yeah.
It's a tradition.
Too funny.
I've been at the Worlds in Sweden, and watching hockey in Europe. I love watching hockey in Canada, but watching it in Europe, Sweden versus Finland in the semis. There was probably more fights in the stands between the Swedes and the Finns.
No way.
Versus what was on the ice. I had never seen anything like it in my life. It was amazing.
Wow.
You'll never find in North America that was hopping like it was in Stockholm that night.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
Wow. And that, that just strikes me as, not that Finns aren't tough, they certainly are, but it just seems like such a anti-Swedish thing. It just seems like they'd be, no, it's okay, you go, we'll go. They're so accommodating as a people. I just, there's so much joy that they have for just very simple things. I'd be curious to see how the fight works out.
And you know what? Right? You know what? You think Newfoundlanders like to drink? You haven't seen nothing until you've seen two of those teams against each other. And most of the guys are passed out outside the arena after the game. I love it.
They just can't handle it like us, Paddy.
Right, true.
Yeah.
But that's one of the reasons why I like watching the Spengler, because the place is absolutely on wheels, flags, it's paint. I'm like, I wish that was here. I wish that was us.
Yes.
We're trying to go for the Growlers, so we'll try to get that going sooner or later.
Yeah. I love, the one thing I really do miss, there's cities you miss that, no longer have teams. And I gotta say, at the top of the list is St. John's. It's just like, it's one of those places where immediately I feel like I belong there, and it just, I don't know what it is about it. I don't know, because there's only like 5 Crockers in the phone book.
A good few here.
Hamilton. But there's like 1,000 of them out there.
Oh yeah.
Like, I gotta be related to one of those people.
Yeah.
Like,
definitely.
Yeah.
Well, the best hockey shop in
what
town
are the
is about Crockers. The Sportscraft.
Oh.
So the best hockey shop since I can remember is a family that I know, and it's owned by Crockers. Best hockey shop in town.
Mm.
And didn't Chris Crocker from Conception Bay play for the Peterborough Petes?
He did.
Junior hockey, I'm pretty sure.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only Crocker I really ever talked to out there was Bob Crocker. He used to take
I know
photos for the Leafs, and it was just like one of those days. He's like, "Hey, I took this picture, and I really thought you might like it." And that's a neat picture. That's great. And we were kind of talking, and he says, "Oh, Bob Crocker," and I'm like, "Hi, Bob." Todd Crocker, and he goes, "Oh, hi," like it was no big deal, but I'm like, no, I just don't meet too many guys with my last name. So.
He's a real estate agent now.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Okay.
We're coming full circle here now. I like it.
Tyler
Bernhard left.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, though.
You're in Newfoundland now, Todd.
Yeah. Everybody knows everybody.
Especially if he knows Paddy.
Yeah.
Well, let's
too funny.
I got something I've been dying to ask you about, because we had Joe Bowen on the podcast. He's been on twice now, actually. Joe was a friend of the show, which is fantastic, because he doesn't do a lot of podcasts, but or any really. But one thing we asked Joe about at the beginning of this season, when he was on with us, we asked him about Josh Hosang and his projection on.
I literally have that wrote here, ask about Josh Hosang.
Too bad, it's my question.
You go ahead.
No, I asked Joe, if what he thought his chances of were Josh actually making the team at a camp, and Joe said unless he has absolutely a mind-blowing camp, 0 chance of him making the team out of camp. He said that being said, he's going to have a chance if he takes the deal to play with the Marlies and play on a really, really good line and really show what he's got. and more importantly, show management what kind of person he is. So I mean, you've been around Josh now enough to, I'm assuming, comment on all of that. And I'd love to hear what you got to say about Josh as a person, a player, the whole shooting match.
Because we're loving the highlights.
Oh, we are.
Yeah. Let me start here, because I think it's more important. I always think it's more important to find out who the person is. To me, I watched a lot of Josh Ho-Sang, just like everyone else, and saw brilliance at times. And as he, rightly points out, lots of times where Josh Ho-Sang wasn't invested in the game at all. And, nobody was going to tell him how to play the game. He was going to play it his way. That's not the case this year. So let me back that up. I meet him for the first time, and I like people that aren't, the carbon copy. We're doing this, we're doing that. I enjoy those people in our game, and there's not enough of them. But Josh is one of those people that I just love to talk to, because he's got a real sense of who he is. He's got a maturity now beyond his years, because he did go through, kind of a situation where he had to learn for himself how to be a better hockey player and better person. He's done all that, and he's just he has a joy in how he's playing. There's no pressure on him anymore. He doesn't feel it. Yep. He doesn't feel like he wants to be, that the end result is the NHL. If it happens, fine, that's great. And I can identify with that, because, and I admire that at a guy Josh's age, because I came to that late too. It was kind of like at a certain point, you're like, I just enjoy the heck out of this. And if the NHL calls one day, well, great, that's great. But really, I just really love this gig. So, I think for him, he really enjoys what's happening now. He's not going to live 3 months into the future. It's not possible anyway, but a lot of players do regardless. A lot of people do regardless, right? How many times do you find yourself saying, oh, gee, when if I can just get past these 2 weeks, then I'll have, but today's the day. This is today. Yeah. Today's your opportunity. And that's how he's kind of approaching it. And I really respect him for that. Josh Ho-Sang, the player. I don't know if you want to talk about, really hard to talk about in terms of most improved player for a guy that was already pretty improved. But I wouldn't say, there's lots of guys who stepped up here, but Josh to me goes from a guy who I'd seen previous years being an uneven player to stepping in and being an even player, just being a guy who understands that. Now, does he still get caught sometimes, trying to dipsy doodle around in 120 feet from the other net? Yeah, sometimes he does, but you're going to have to accept that, because he's a completely talented, elite level talent player that is going to do something at the other end when he has the puck that not a lot of other players can do. Yeah. We don't talk about that with a lot of other players, because they're not Josh Ho-Sang. Right. So Josh to me is a player that is happy where he is. Will he be a guy that the Leafs bring along if they have a run in the spring? I think so. Yeah.
I can't come up with a reason why they wouldn't. Josh, I don't know if Josh is some kind of hockey wizard as well, because any night the Leafs lose, cue up the Josh Ho-Sang highlight reel goal. It's like clockwork. Like, might as well turn on the Marlies feed now, listen to Crocker.
It's taking so long.
That's fascinating. Yeah. I never noticed it before, but
it's clockwork.
Yeah. I love it. I'm just enjoying it. I said to him at the outset of the season, Josh, I'm really excited to have you here. I said, because I don't do this job the way a lot of people do this job, and I say a lot of silly and goofy things, and I think you and I will complement each other just fine. And he kind of laughed, and now he's stuck with me. So
excellent. Well, it's too bad Robinson got hurt too early, because I was really ramped up to watch a lot of that this year. And him and Mo sang together. It just looked like it was like early Magic, and you knew it was going to be.
Yeah, the one thing about Nick is the focus. Boy, I tell you, I think I probably could have had a rocket on Mars by now if I had the focus that Nick Robertson has. I'm watching him go through this rehab day to day, and the way he is attacking it. And I got to tell you, like a couple of days ago, I caught my finger in the door, and it just got me a little bit, just on the edge. You ever do that? You just catch the edge, like and I'm not ready to go yet. Like I'm like, oh no, like I need attention. I need chicken soup. I need, I need to lie down here. And, like comparatively, he's like, what door? And he's just every day banging away, getting, and working on it mentally and working on it physically. And I don't think I've seen too many players that have that kind of just focus on the game and on their game, on how to fit in with the other game, with the game. And I really, was I sorry to see him get injured? Absolutely, because I'm just so curious about what he can do.
Yeah. And it seems that he just keeps getting like these unfortunate injuries too, right? And
he's right there. He's right there for a roster spot. Yeah.
Is he, in your opinion, I was gonna say, in your opinion, do you think he's, I haven't like checked on him like in a while. Is he somewhat close to returning, or?
No, he's still in a cast. He's weeks away. Yeah. Like I would say.
At least after Christmas sometime.
All-Star break? I think that's what we're talking about. Before then.
Okay.
Before then. For sure. But I think it was 8 to 10 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
They said, and it's been 4. I think so.
Wow, that's
2 more weeks,
oh my
God. With the cast. So he's got 2 more weeks probably with the cast, I think. I don't know where we're at actually with that. So anyway, and then that comes off, and then you've got a whole bunch of rehab. Now there would have been lots of times in the past where people would just say, okay, give it a week, you're back on the ice, and away you go. But that's not how the Leafs work.
No.
That's a short-term investment.
Yeah, they are so good about how to rehab an injury that I think there's lots of times where a guy, even myself, I find myself saying, isn't that guy ready yet? Like what's stopping that guy from playing? Come on. And what's stopping that guy from playing is science. And like I failed science a couple of times. So
me too.
And they have one of the best medical facilities in the league, and I think that attracts a lot of players that are having those issues. Like Tyler Ennis came in and fixed up his hips a bit, and hopefully with Nick Robertson, it's just in good hands, and this wouldn't be lasting nagging things. And I don't think it will be. He's young and he's resilient.
Oh yeah,
he's too good to keep down.
It'll be curious.
He's a
back
big
to Robertson
piece
for a
club.
second. I recall back in the preseason, Haley Wickenheiser making the comment, and I don't know if this is her exact words, in regards to he's got to learn to tone it down a little bit.
She said something like
that. That's a hard message for him to accept, and then to accept it and then do something about it, because he is like, it's hard to change the person. Any thoughts on that? Like, is his focus going to be a detriment?
Yeah, I do, Paddy. I have a real clear thought on it, and that's that I think people focused on the wrong phrase that she said. I think she said, he's got to learn to dial it back. And I think that was the phrase that everybody kind of jumped on and said, he's got to learn to dial it back. And what I think got lost in it was he has to learn to play within the flow of the game. And that is truly what Nick Robertson is going to have to do. He doesn't have to junior the thing, which is I can take this all on my own shoulders and I can go down the, well, it doesn't work that way at this level. It doesn't work that way at the next level. Nobody, one guy can do it all himself, but you need to know that there is a lot of danger points out there for you to have success in this league So use it, play within the flow of what the game is offering you. And I think that was the message for Nick was don't get ahead of the game. Don't get ahead of your line mates. Don't try to do things that aren't there to do simply because you think you can do it and you can get it done and you alone. There's other guys on the ice, other guys on the team. Yeah. Use every tool at your disposal. And I think that was what Haley's message really was in that, but it kind of got lost in that dial it back. And I thought, I get where people might think that, because when you meet him, you talk to him, he's intensity in 10 cities. He's just like, wow. But
I never heard that before. Yeah. I like that.
He is just one of these guys that he's going 100 miles an hour after his dream, and you got to appreciate it. As I say, I was never that focused, certainly at that age, wasn't even close. So
no.
So I think that's I think that's a part that actually will play to this injury is he will come back at a time when the league is just dialing it to the next level. And that's the level that he'll come back in. That's the level he'll catch up to. And that's the level that he'll eventually surpass.
Interesting.
Excellent. Good to hear, because
it was a good,
keeping it simple definitely works. And I think Mitch Marner can identify with putting it all on his back to do everything that he could possibly do, but keep with the play and keep with the team instead of putting it all on yourself. And I think I could definitely say that Nick, he's just such a hard worker. He's just flat out, when you see him lean forward and those legs are going, and it's just every time he's on every shift.
It's
a joy to watch.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely. There's obviously a future there.
Yep.
Yeah. I can't wait. Like, just seeing his brother, and I mean, I know they're two different people, but like, I know the potential is there. It's just damn injuries.
Yeah.
It's good to hear about his focus, though, because those are the kind of injuries, back-to-back serious injuries that would really affect an average person a lot harder than it would affect someone with his focus. So if he's working on his mental game and he's mentally strong, then that's to his advantage right now, because at that age 100%. And being right on that brink of making the NHL and making an impact and playing with Austin Matthews or playing with a John Tavares, he's that close, right? And to be set back, 2 years running, oh man, a normal kid might not come back from that, but I really think Nick will mentally. So
yeah, definitely.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I'm actually, funny enough, I never even planned on asking this, but just thinking of the Marlies, and the last time I got to watch them had happened to be with the Ice Caps being here, and that was when Nylander was here and stuff like that. But I think my favorite player to watch besides Nylander was always Connor Brown. Man, that guy was intense. Every time he was here, he was intense. I mean, yelling flat out the entire game, yelling, screaming. That was fun.
Connor Brown, one of those guys that just immediately you like, but immediately you understand that his will to win supersedes everything. He and Matt Finn were great friends, but Matt Finn always used to say, there's a point there where the rest of us will just go, oh, well, we, backyard rink, when we were kids. Oh, well, game's over. It's, the lights are out. It's 8 o'clock. I don't know what time kids finish playing it, but anyway, it's, and Connor Brown could not leave the rink if they were losing, that kind of thing. So he is a guy that will give you that competitive effort in an NHL game. He'll give you that competitive effort in a game of Monopoly. He is going to get at it and get invested in it. If there is a competition about what is happening and there's going to be a winner and a loser, Connor Brown is going to be a part of that, and he is going to have a say in it. And I like him immensely. He is the guy that would always challenge me. I used to say to him, I can talk about anything for 2 minutes, Connor. Anything. You just go ahead, you name it. And so he would walk by and he would give me random topics. I would just 2 minutes and he would and 2 minutes later he'd just be like, I don't know. next time, you know, and he got a few, you know, a few of them were, you know, a little specious, but nonetheless, I got through the 2 minutes. But yeah, he was always he's always tremendous. And I, you know, one of those guys. There's a lot of guys to like in hockey, but we talked about a couple here tonight that are just exceptional people. So
I love watching him
yeah.
Yeah. Besides Nylander, was like he was always just circling and like dancing around people. But Connor was just working and screaming the entire game. I'm like, man, that dude is driven.
Yeah, that was good to go.
And they were losing pretty bad. I think it was 6-1, and he was just still burning up.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I don't remember that one, Chad.
No,
6-1. Anyway, we can move on from it. But I do, however, remember one game out there that was 8-4 late in the third period, and it was when I think the Ice Caps, I think the Canadians were there, and it ended up being 9-8 in the end. I think Garrett Sparks came in for Antoine Bibeau, and I think Josh Lebo maybe with the overtime winner. I'm not sure. I don't remember that, but
I remember that game. I was there. I was at
oh
that
my
one.
goodness, what a game! What a wild game! But it's still in the record books for the Marlies as the greatest comeback. So
that was a great time.
Anytime I went down and watched the Marlies play the Ice Caps, the Marlies spanked them pretty much, except for, like I said, when they played in the playoffs that time. But my favorite memory is we were on our way back into the city from visiting parents and stuff, and my wife's like, "There's a game tonight, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." You didn't try to get tickets? I was like, "Well, I didn't think I could get them, to be honest." She's like, "Why don't you just check?" She was driving, so I'm on my phone. I pops on Kijiji, and boom, up pops these 2 tickets. I'm like, "Yeah." So I called a missus. She's like, "Yeah, no, we just decided not to go. You know, these tickets, you know, take them, whatever it was, $20 each or $25. I was like, "Perfect." When we get to the rink, I'm like, or when we pick up the tickets, I'm like, the numbers were really low. Like it was like row 1. I was like, something's up here. So anyway, when we walk down, and I'm literally sitting right next to the glass, to the door by the box there, where the goalies are letting the guys in out on the bench, and you know, during warm-ups, friggin' Trevor Moore was eyeing my nachos, and you know what I mean? Like I was right there, you know, during that game. Travis Dermott dumped the puck in, or was dumping the puck in, and it was the rounded glass, and the glass actually broke and landed in my lap. Like, it was one of those games, right? I really, that's probably my favorite game that I've been to, and I've been to several Leafs games, but that was my favorite. I felt part of the action, you know, just on a whim. But I was wondering, so what did that damn Todd Crocker say about that glass landing on my lap? But yeah, no, we've had some great teams and great Marlies teams to watch, and that Calder Cup team. I mean, we've touched on them a lot here already. I mean, most of those guys have gone on to big jobs with bigger clubs and in up in the show and whatnot.
Players,
yeah, and some more have gone back to play in the KHL and whatever it might be. But just an absolutely amazing team to watch. Amazing.
Yeah, it was a pretty special run more than anything. You know, and some of the guys that you probably you think to yourself, oh yeah, and they're the and guys, you know, that at the time, Trevor Moore, Adam Brooks, Mason Marchment were all and guys. They were like, the team has this person, and they also have this, and yet those and guys are all in the NHL, right?
That's
Brooks
right.
is with Vegas, Marchment is with Florida, Moore with
doing
the
really
Kings.
good in Florida.
So that line, which really kind of gelled together in that playoff, it's kind of neat to see them have the success that they had. I thought it was great. And you know, the other thing I often think of when I think of that is just, you know, after I get about, you know, 70 things deep, is that because Gary Kapanen had the option to come back and didn't. He just said, well, you know, I'm done with the AHL. I don't want to get in. And I thought, wow, you missed a championship. And I know he's got a career. He got, you know, I never fault him for that. But I often think championships just don't fall off trees. Nope. They're really hard.
No.
And when Dermott and Janssen came back, they were so invested. It changed everything. And it was just such an incredible run to be a part of. I remember in the last game, or this game 6, maybe, John Bartlett, who was the original voice of the Marlies, came into the booth, and he's like, you're going to get to call one. You're going to get to call one here. It's going to be great. And I'm like, I suddenly felt the weight of, all the years of the Marlies and the years they came close in 2008. And I wasn't even there, I had been calling them down the street for the opponent. So, and then in 2012, felt the weight of that, and John Abbott getting a chance to call a championship, but it didn't work out. And then in 2013-14, when they played Texas and Texas, they talk about St. John's memories. They played Texas, lost to Texas in Game 7. I'm coming home. I'm on the bus the next day, going to the airport, and I get a call from Leafs TV that says, we want you guys to come home and go right back to Texas because we want you to call the Calder Cup. And it was like, oh, great. So subdued, because none of us wanted to, we felt horrible. And yet we called it. And I said to Paul Hendrick, who was there at the time too, I said to Henny, I said, you're gonna think you were going back to Texas, you just spent a week there or whatever. That's fine. You know what that's like. But when we go to St. John's, you're gonna see a different thing altogether. And you're gonna appreciate that you went, because they were all kind of like, season's over. It's over. It just feels wrong to be doing this. And he would count that probably as one of his great memories in sport, to be calling a Calder Cup like that. So, yeah. So I felt that weight that day. I felt that weight Game 7. Felt the history of the team, not just the Marlies, but the St. John's Maple Leafs. And it was such a unique moment to call in Toronto and Leafs history, that if nothing else significant happens in my hockey career, I got to tell you, that was an emotional moment that if I spend just a little bit more time talking about it, I'm going to get emotional now. So we'll just.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, that evening I was watching the game, and I had it on the big screen in my living room, and like, my wife pays no attention at the best of times to what I'm watching when it comes to sports. And she's like, "Are you watching hockey? Because like the Leafs." No, it's not the Leafs. What are you watching? I'm like, this is just Game 7. I'm trying to explain to her how important this is. She's like, yeah. Anyway, she comes back later on, and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm sobbing like a baby, right? And she's like, what's wrong with you now? And I'm like, the Calder Cup and Todd Crocker and Dermot's hurt. So yeah, she makes fun of me quite often because I cried when the Marlies won the cup. But anyway, that is a big one. That's a fact, Jack.
But Todd, is a good. My final question, and I have my burning question, but it was a good segue when you said it's one of the greatest moments from your career. Take us back to the day when you got a call to replace Joe Bowen, your NHL debut.
Oh my goodness, boy! Yeah, you guys are leaning heavy on the emotions here. We were in Boston, and we were getting ready to play 3 games out there, and Springfield, Providence, Bridgeport, maybe, or I don't even remember now because I didn't get to call any of them. But and I got a call. We didn't have a game that day, but I got a call, and I didn't answer it, because I was like, come on, it's early morning here. I just whatever. And then Brad Lynn, who was the Marlies director of hockey ops for a long time, and then became the Leafs guy that way. And I finally picked it up, and I'm like, "Hey, Brad, how's it going?" And he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "I was just in the shower. I got this and I got that." And I'm like, just whatever. And I got to be on the bus at noon and whatever. "Oh, what's going on?" And he goes, "I got a car for you waiting downstairs at your hotel to take you to the airport you're going to come up, you're going to call the game tonight in Colorado." And I'm like, what's happening? Like, I don't understand what has occurred here. Like, and he said, "No, Joe's got laryngitis and they need somebody to call the games." And I'm like, my first thought, how's this for first thoughts? Is there no one out there that can call a hockey game? Like, what? Like, are you serious? And anyways, Brad says, yeah, there are people, but we want you to do it. And I'm like,
amazing.
Wow. So just to be shown that amount of faith and amount of care that they put into my career, that Kyle as well, Kyle Dubas, they made sure that I was the guy who got to do it. And so get on a plane at Logan Airport. I was, you know how you get those loading groups where you're like A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4. They're loading the last zone and I'm in it. And I literally am the last person on the airplane.
Oh.
And I'm just like, oh my God. I sit down and my mind is going 100 miles an hour. I can't even put it all together. We get up in the air. I can't figure out how to get the Wi-Fi on the airplane. I don't know a ton about who they're playing. You're so focused on your own season. I'm just like, oh, okay. Well, I'm going to Colorado, so Landeskog, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting all this right in my mind, and I think, oh, I'll get it when I get to O'Hare. I'll figure it all out. I land at O'Hare, and I get off the plane, and I say to the girl, oh, I got to get on this plane to Denver. And she's like, oh, my God, it's leaving in like 20 minutes. And I said, from like here? And she goes, no, it's over in the other terminal. You got to go down here. You got to go underground. You got to go over
Of course.
here. And I'm just like, whoo, it's like, you may not remember that I'm feeling like the $6 million man. And down I go, and I get on this plane, and they've already called it. Like I am literally like the door is like, no, I'm here. And of course, these people have been waiting for me. Not for me, like just a guy. And like the looks. Really? And I'm just, all I want to say to them is, I'm going to call my first NHL game.
Right?
Give me a break.
Can't you be a little happy for me?
Yes.
I get down to my seat, a middle seat. And I'm like, oh no. I was like, this is going to kill me. I am just squeezed in, no. And I can't get out my computer. I can't do anything. I was like, so I just kind of get my mind right. I get out, get the airport, and the guy who picks me up at the airport, Cliff, says to me, hey, I don't know if we're going to make this. We're a long ways out. I'm like, what's the airport in Denver? Oh, it's a long way out. He said, get in. I literally dive in the back of his car. He's moving, we're just like, off we go. I'm getting changed in the back of the car. I'm like, oh, what's this look like? And he's like looking in the rearview mirror. He says, oh, look, I'm like, oh, okay, great. I hop out of the car. Brad Lynn's there, takes a video of it. And he's like, hey, welcome to the NHL. And I'm like, surprised I'm here, and go in the building. And the pregame skate's already going. And my heart is going a million miles an hour, almost better because I didn't have time to think about anything, or look at a lineup. And I go up and I get up there and I think I'm just going to take a look at this. So I get the paper and I'm like, okay. So one of the guys comes in visiting radio. He's like, hey man, welcome. Great. Good luck. I'm like, yeah, oh, good. I really want to have a conversation with you, but I got
go away.
He's like, yeah, no, it's great. So he leaves. In comes Kyle. Kyle Dubas. Hey, come on, we got to get a picture. And I'm like, yes, we do. Yes, it's awesome. And I'm freaking out, but I'm also freaking out. And then anyway, and then Ralphie, who was just awesome. Like I don't know. I don't think he spoke. I don't think he spoke more in a broadcast than he did that night, helping me out. And he was just amazing. And Joe too. Like, I mean, you don't want to be Wally Pipp. I don't know if you know who that is, but Wally Pipp is the guy who played first base for the Yankees before Lou Gehrig went on a, however many Ironman run that he went on. Wally Pipp was the guy who said, I don't feel well today. and then Lou Gehrig took his job and never gave it back. And nobody in broadcasting wants to be Wally pipped. So and I would never, like, Joe is just such an incredible legend, a spectacular individual. That he was just so generous, and not feeling well. Like, he's got laryngitis, the worst. And he said, look, here's what you do. This is my hotel. It's all set up already, for on the road for the next stop. And he was just, and then, online could have said nothing, could have said absolutely zero, but instead was so kind. And that stood out to me. But calling that game and finishing it, Mark Masters, I gotta put me on TSN, and I'm like,
no way.
And then after it, the paper, and then Cappy scored as the first goal I ever called. Kasperi Kapanen scored. I was like, I'm just amazed. I was like, I know that guy. Now I know most of them, but like, he's got the heart of a Marley. This guy, like, I just know him. And so it felt great that he was the guy that
amazing
that kind of was that goal, and then that ended, and I'm always amazed at how fast it moves. Like, so that ends, it goes, we're finished, and then I go to take. So when you travel on the road in the American Hockey League, you bring all your equipment, mixer board, computer, all these different things that you bring with you. So I go to take the mixer board. Well, in the NHL, it's there. Like, they provide it. And I'm like, do I? And I looked at the guy who was the engineer, the operator. I'm like, you want me to take that downstairs, or do I have a case here for that? And he's like, this is ours. And I'm like, oh.
Like Austin Matthews carrying his own bag.
I've heard about this, Oh my goodness. Off I go downstairs. We do some sort of thing. It's all happening so fast. Go back to the hotel room. Got to be up at 4:00 in the morning to go to Vegas, the next stop. And then there's a moment there where we're flying to Las Vegas, and I can't get the Nazareth song out of my head, because I'm just like, Las
Flight
Vegas Sands, I'm like, yes,
flight tonight.
And I'm just like, hey, that's awesome. And we land, and we have a day off. They don't play that day; they play the next day. And I'm just, all of a sudden, I'm standing there in this hotel room at a really nice hotel. Not the Marlies don't stay; they do. They stay at some of the best hotels, but this one is beyond. And I'm just, oh my God, like, this is what it's like in the NHL. And I was. I don't know. I just, it flooded over me, and I just felt so thankful that I've been around so many good people. Joe Bowen, Jim Ralph, Paul Hendrick, Nicole Burns, who was a producer of their stuff on the road, that kept me kind of even keeled throughout those, 4 games. And the one thing I always wondered about in my career is, was I ever good enough to call a game in the NHL? Was I ever good enough to do it? Or was it just, the time just didn't suit me doing it? The times just didn't happen. And so now I know I can do it. And I could have done it. It just, the timing was wrong for me in my career. So those 4 games, that let me know that. And I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. That's cool.
Amazing. I watched
great
them all,
journey.
Todd,
That
and,
was.
I watched them all, and you killed it. In my opinion, what do I know about broadcasting? But I was like, again, my wife walks by, and I'm watching this game. She's like, well, what's why are you so excited? I'm like, it's Todd Crocker. He's calling the games to go for Marlies. She's like, you're an idiot.
It's a beautiful story.
Ryan crying again.
Crying.
I got to tell you, though, I know that was a long answer to a short question, but I just really, just so thankful for some of the guys that stepped in there and made that happen. Kyle and Brad and the support of the people I just mentioned, and the Marlies themselves, who who turned around and just didn't skip a beat and you know, didn't make me feel like, I'll tell you what, I know you don't have a unlimited amount of time here, but getting back was almost weirder than going, because I called the game in St. Louis, which was wild. And you know, like there's some that you're just like, wow, you know, like Vegas was a spectacle, incredible, just amazing. Arizona was just such an odd experience to call a game in a place like that like this is the only ice for miles. But St. Louis fabled, you know, like people that have called games for that franchise. Anyway, so awesome. That's the Marlies have a school day game the next day. And talk about, you know, guys wanting to keep their jobs. I'm so, I don't know, I wouldn't say insecure, but I think I'm broadcaster insecure, you know, which is just like, that's my job, you know, like, so I leave, snowstorm, Leafs don't get out of the night before, but we get, I think, the last flight out of St. Louis, and it's snowstorm, and we fly, and I'm like, oh, don't let this go, buddy Holly. You know, like I'm just like, get up in the air and let's just make this a non-story landing. Okay, like there's no story that any called games in the NHL and that. And it's like, oh. So I land.
They didn't win another until he found his body.
So I get there literally at the same time I got there, in like pregame skate, stepped into the booth, called that game. So I called the St. Louis game the night previous, called this game, school day game for the Marlies the next morning. And, you know, like it wasn't until really a week later that I processed the whole thing and was just like, even now, I'm telling it, I feel like I'm living it, you know, right in front of you here. So
sounds like you just slept for like 3 days afterwards.
Oh yeah, I was wild. I was, as I say, I called that game and then driving home, I'm thinking about all the things that happened. And then I got home, and of course everybody's pretty excited for you. And then you don't even know, like I didn't even know in Hamilton, it was a big story. It was like somebody wrote in the paper about it, and then it was on some program, and then it was on the news, and then people were leaving me messages at home, and I didn't even know. Like I just got back, and suddenly it was like, oh my God, we listened to you at an NHL game. And I was like, where were you people? Like, what are you talking about? It was on the West Coast. It was late at night. You wouldn't be up, you know? It's like, I don't know. It just was pretty spectacular moment.
Sound amazing.
I bet.
Yeah. Will you play yourself in the Hollywood movie?
Well, I'll be the right age if it happens now. But you know, if we really do the Hollywood side of things, I think that there's probably some. You're gonna have to get Vince Vaughn. He's about my height, so you know. So I think somebody's 6'4", but I think probably most people would classify me on a Will Ferrell basis. So, you know, it'd be a little bit goofier than possibly that. So
well, my wife says, is that the guy who looks like Charlie Sheen? I said, yes, that's Crocker. Yeah.
Charlie Sheen.
That's what Leslie said one day. She said, yeah, he looks just like Charlie Sheen. I'm like, really?
I don't see Charlie Sheen.
No, well, thanks, Kylie. Gee. You know,
she's only Tom Cruise. Only Tom Cruise.
Yes.
I don't see. I've never been able to. You know, when people say that about you, like I don't know what you get, but I mean, like I get these things, and people say, "Oh, you know what? You look like Frodo from The Hobbit." And it's like, you know, like nobody says that, but I'm just, you know.
I truly believe I look like Ed Sheeran. Just throwing it out there. Don't sing like him, but looks.
Well, you could sing like him with auto tune, you know.
I'll tell you, I was harassed by an Australian man in Dublin who was calling me Sergio Garcia for like 3 hours at a pub. I was like, dude, you gotta leave me alone.
I do see that now that you say it.
Yeah, man, oh man. Yeah. That's Australian. 3 hours straight.
We had a PR guy, Stefano, who looked like the tennis player Milos Raonic. Yeah, he really did look like him, but he was 6'8". Like our guy was 6'8", but you know, somebody would be like, "Hey, are you the tennis player?" It's like, really? Like, are there tennis players that big? I don't know. And so anyway.
Okay, I just Googled who Sergio Garcia is, and he actually does kind of look like you, Chad.
Well, you told the Australian guy who wouldn't leave me alone.
Well, like with a hat on and stuff.
I've only ever been mistaken for the guy from the Pretty Fly for a White Guy music video with the hat on sideways. Like, like that guy.
Oh,
That's me. I've been mistaken for that guy.
Oh my God, you're all
guys, we can't keep this going all night. I could, I guess, but we can't.
My face hurts.
We've used and abused Todd more than we probably should have. So I think we'll knock on the head there. But really enjoyed your story about the first game. That was definitely the highlight for me, this one. Awesome.
Yeah, I love
some great stories, Todd.
Yeah, you don't often get a chance to tell them, because the people in your life aren't really that interested in your life. They lived it.
They were there.
Fair enough.
Yeah, they're not sitting back going, "Hey, could you tell that again next Thursday too?" Like, oh my goodness, it was just so good over the meatloaf that we just had. Why don't we have meatloaf and you tell that story again?
Good. No, I gotta say, no, it was great.
Well, anytime you want to tell a story, you can just call us.
I will, and I thank so much for having me on. I don't think I've had this kind of fun on a podcast before. Just natural and honest conversation. I appreciated it.
That's the feedback we've been getting.
Coming on.
That's what we appreciate. We'll finish up with basically. I mean, I've learned way more than I thought I was going to take away from this podcast. I've learned that Todd is probably the narrowest arteries in sports broadcasting. That's key. Yeah, that's
a deep fried potato addiction.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nothing wrong with that, though.
Todd also referenced a phone book, so if anybody, you young listeners, are wondering what that is, Google it.
Google. Yep.
Google
they still exist somewhere.
Yeah. He also mentioned henchmen. If you ever need henchmen, they're Todd. You know where to call. We're good to go at any time.
Perfect.
Pre-game henchmen, we're there for you. But we've also learned that Todd's a real gentleman, and not everybody takes the time to. We send out messages to various people who we think would be interesting to chat with, and sometimes we get a response, sometimes we don't. But only the best people respond, and we're really grateful you took the time to chat with a few podcasters who are just getting going, and we really enjoyed it. And you've made a few friends here tonight. So if you're ever back to the Rock again, you make sure to look us up, and we'll take care of you for sure.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, just keep your food stocked. I don't mind.
No problem with that.
Don't mind coming in. Don't try and keep it healthy. It's not important to me. So
that's all right. No.
I do appreciate it, and it's you know what. I just think it's I don't say yes to everybody either. There are lots of requests that come in, and lots of people are just getting going, and lots of people trying to, but there's just something about this group that has something special, and I just felt like I want to be a part of that. So I appreciate you reaching out, and I appreciate being on the show.
Really appreciate that.
Thanks.
It's funny when other podcasters have messaged us and say, "How'd you get that guy?" I'm like, I don't know, man.
Oh my God, all the time.
All the time. I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys.
For all of our sake. Thank you.
All right.
Have a good night.
Good night.
That's it. Mr. Crocker is out. I want to know.
Good time.
And then now that Croc's here, we haven't got to kiss his ass. What's your takeaway? What's your thoughts on Todd Crocker as a person, as a broadcaster? Let's hear it.
Loves what he does.
He's your 5-tool player, equivalent to a baseball player. He's your 5-tool guy.
Well said. I like it.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
Baseball reference. Not normally welcomed here, but I like it. Yeah.
Hey, we like baseball here.
That's true.
Can't top that.
Well said. Todd making the time to come on, man. Amazing. I was not expecting that level of storytelling and involvement. What a great guy. Just a class act of a gentleman. I can't say it. I mean, I've always been a Todd Crocker fan, right? I mean, no one called a Drew McIntyre save like Todd Crocker. I mean, just not, doesn't happen. But yeah, I've always been a fan, but man, am I ever a fan now. What a guy.
Yeah, it's like I watch a million Marlies games. It's not like, hey, I'm going to talk to Todd Crocker.
I know him. Yeah, like I know that guy.
Chat with them. That's kind of cool, actually.
Too funny.
Mark him list of people we're going to visit. I'm going to go to Ontario. Number.
Yeah, write him down when we have our DSC trip.
Yeah,
Coca-Cola Coliseum.
Yeah,
I'll be there.
Other people.
I actually said that. Next time I go to Toronto, like to see Leafs game, I'm definitely seeing a Marlies game.
Absolutely,
100%.
Yeah,
you'd be silly not to if they're in town. You should try to plan your trip around it. Actually, that's what a couple
Rico
of my buddies
is amazing.
Yeah.
I'd love to. I've never been.
Yeah, I've never been there either.
No.
So needs to go. Got to go.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Somewhere else you got to go when you're in Southern Ontario. PHG Sports. At Whitby, Ontario.
Whitby.
Yep.
Whitby.
PHG's been sponsoring this podcast now, guys, ever since the inception, back in season 1. We're very grateful. It's amazing. I'm always floored when someone likes our content to begin with. Certainly when it's someone who's not from Newfoundland or someone who's got no real connection to us, personally, professionally, whatever it might be. So when PHG came on board as a sponsor, I was floored and humbled, and I never take that for granted. These guys are class guys as well. And make sure if you get a chance, visit their website, www.phgsports.com. That's where the pros sign. They've got all the best gear. I've been shopping there for years. That's how I met Todd, the owner, in the beginning. But fantastic quality product and the best customer service out there. So again, www.phgsports.com.
Right now they're set up in Ottawa in the Gloucester location until the 5th of December.
There you go.
Go check it out.
Mr. Newman's update on location. So yeah, the Costco Roadshow. Give them a look. But no, guys, that's it for us. Hope you enjoyed this one. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I always say this is one of my favorites. Seems like every episode is one of my favorites, but this one truly was a piece of work, and I really enjoyed it. So if you're looking for more of our content, just check out www.facebook.com/DeekSnipesEllie. Pretty much everything we do runs through Facebook now. We're the cool kids. You can check us out on Twitter at SellyDeek. You can also check out our own website, which is www.deeksnipeselly.ca. We've been building on our team lately, and we've got a graphics design guy who's on board, Mr. Paul Loader, and we just brought in our first full-time blogger, which is Mr. Timothy Hayward.
Woo!
And Tim,
go Tim.
Let me tell you,
welcome aboard.
Tim's forgotten more about the Leafs than the four of us know.
Definitely.
So if you're looking for good written content, there's some coming very soon from Mr. Hayward. So
can't wait.
Yep. Also, guys, if you're listening, you may be listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, you name it. Wherever you listen to your podcast, you can get Deek Snipes Ellie. We're also a little bit humbled recently to find out that we've been ranked in the top 200 podcasts in 2 countries, in the United States and in Canada, among hockey podcasts. So there's a lot of us out there, and we appreciate you guys who are listening and who bumped us up in that ranking. So cheers to you guys. But the listeners, this doesn't happen. I guess it does happen, but it just happens over a few beer and on a telephone. But
it's much better when people listen to us.
Yeah, this is much more enjoyable for everyone, I think.
Yeah.
So no, guys,
definitely.
Keep on listening and keep on liking and sharing that content. That's what gets it out there, and we appreciate it so much. So again, smash that subscribe button. But I got nothing else to say. You guys?
Nope.
No, I'm good.
All right. Peace out.
Cheers.